Can you remember your team's worst draft pick of the past 10 years? I'm gonna go through every NFL team's worst draft pick since 2015 and since 2020. Last week I already did the NFC, so this video is gonna be the AFC. Also, be sure if I get anything wrong, just let me know in the comments. I'm not trying to mess up anybody's gripes here, so also be sure to subscribe because I have like little mini challenges and like all my like edited videos where you can get like a quick little cash app from me. So watch out for that and subscribe. Now let's get started. We're gonna kick it off with the Cleveland Browns. Now their worst pick since 2020 is actually Deshaun Watson. Now I'm definitely aware that Deshaun Watson actually is not even their draft pick, but at the same time they used 3 first-round picks for him and like he's been trash. Like I don't know what all those masseuses were doing, but they definitely sapped his power after that scandal. So plus he looked dumb freaky. Like look at his crooked ass hairline. Easy worst pick since 2020. Now the worst pick since 2015, that's gonna have to go to Deshaun Kaiser. These Browns can't get their Deshaun's right. Well, at least this guy didn't do anything crazy or illegal, but he was just bad at football. He came out of Notre Dame and was like a raw prospect. People were kind of hyped about his upside, but upside can only take you so far when you're an indecisive turnover machine. And for honorable mention, I got Corey Coleman. Now he had 20 touchdowns his final season at Baylor and was a first-round pick, but by his 3rd year with the Browns, he went to the office and asked for a trade because he was 5th on the depth chart. Honestly, he probably could be in that spot for Deshaun Kaiser, but it's hard with the Browns, so we got to give it to him here for honorable mention. Now surely the Ravens don't have any bad draft picks, right? You would be wrong. So we take a look at the past couple of drafts here. For their worst pick since 2020, I got David Ojabo. David Ojabo, if he's a Ravens pick, you're just expected to be extremely good. I mean, dude only has 5 sacks in 3 years. Now, I know he has a lot of injuries and he hasn't been on the field much, but that also lends to him not being a good draft pick so far. So if you're a Ravens player, this is not acceptable. And since 2015, I got their worst pick being Rashad Perriman. Now, if you know who Rashad Perriman is, just think of Quentin Johnston with a cooked hairline. They should have taken one look at this and realized bro was not going to be able to catch a single thing in the NFL. All jokes aside though, his hands were just bricks, and that's why you can't be a receiver with brick hands. So he's the worst pick since 2015. For honorable mention, I got Hayden Hurst. Now don't let this luxurious hair and thick ass beard fool you. He's not good at football, or at least not good enough to be the 25th overall pick. It's also crazy that in this draft they also got Mark Andrews in the 3rd round, or 4th round maybe, and he was a much better tight end. These AFC teams are trying to cook me, but we gotta get to the Steelers too. They got some bad draft picks. Now their worst pick since 2020, I gotta go with Kenny Pickett. Now Kenny Pickett was definitely a reach at the 20th overall pick in the 2022 draft. I think he was the only quarterback in the 1st round, and his skill set just never screamed QB1. They basically just picked him because he was local. That's crazy. And their worst pick since 2015, I kind of stretched it out here, but it's Chase Claypool in 2020, 2nd round pick, 49th overall. I think he thought he was way better than he was. I think he said he's gonna be a top 5 receiver, and with all his like kind of like off the field antics and just not being that great, they eventually traded him to the Bears. For honorable mention, we got Deontay Johnson. Now he's not a bad player, but he's just a bad locker room player. Like he must have been so toxic because he keeps getting shit from team to team, but if you look at him like individually, he's cooking people on routes. He's cooking them. So he must be a horrible guy in the locker room. A damn shame. Next up we have the Bengals, and with the Bengals, their worst pick since 2020 is probably the most recent one I've done in this series so far, in Jermaine Burton. Now he's gonna go here because he's probably not gonna be in the league again because he has gotten into some legal trouble here that probably will not allow him to come back and make any like impact. He definitely could have been a high-end wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 2, but we won't see that now. Now for the worst pick since 2015, we have John Ross. Now he's another one of these speed demon guys that we're all positive is gonna be good, and then they aren't good and they just keep running around doing cardio every single week. Quick sidebar, I think coaches were just dumb back then because they could not figure out how to use these guys, so such is life, I guess. And for honorable mention, I got DJ Turner. I think he's a cornerback. I don't know, I made this list a while ago, but I think he hasn't been playing that good or something like that. He probably has no production. Let me double check here. Oh, it looks like he was playing well and then he broke his clavicle, or he lost his spot and then he broke his clavicle. So I guess that's why I put him here. Sorry DJ, but you gotta go on the list. I low-key did him dirty, but let's move on to the Jaguars. So the Jaguars, their worst pick since 2020, I got my boy K'Lavon Chaisson. Anyways, he was one of those speedy edge guys from LSU. And it's kind of hard to hit on those guys because either they're going to be good or they're going to be trash. Well, not trash, but sometimes that light play weight really backfires and it kind of stifles your production. And then for the worst draft pick since 2015, I got TJ Yeldon. Now, TJ Yeldon was hyped coming out of Alabama. He was a pretty good back. With the Jaguars, he never cracked 500 yards rushing. And if you're a 2nd round pick, 36 overall, you gotta at least give me 500 yards, man. Especially back in the time when they're running more, you gotta do better than that. For honorable mention, I got my boy Trevor Lawrence. Now, this is also kind of factoring in his contract too. He's not performing up to that contract or his number over pick just yet. We need a 2nd playoff win, brother. And we need it fast. and also his recent injury history, it's adding up. Now we have to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Now with the Colts, I think their worst draft pick since 2020 comes from the 3rd round in Jelani Woods. Now Jelani Woods is a tight end, he's tall, and that's about it. He hasn't become that security blanket for Anthony Richardson just yet. And everybody has the Colts mocked to get Tyler Warren or another one of the top tight ends, so he's obviously not doing his job right. And then for the worst pick since 2015, I have Philip Dorsett. Now Philip Dorsett was drafted probably to replace T.Y. Hilton, but he definitely never achieved anything more than just being a gadget player. And again, this could be just like a product of coaches being meatheads back then, but he never really produced. And then for the honorable mention, I have Anthony Richardson. Other than just getting benched actually last season and then sitting out a play as well, his inconsistency definitely should be a concern for the Colts. You have to hit something other than just bombs, bro. Let's get some slants going too. Let's get some slants. Hopefully he figures it out though. Now next up, this team made it extremely easy for me with a barrage of bad choices. We got the Titans. And now for the worst pick since 2020, I have to go with Isaiah Wilson. I'm not even sure if guy actually got onto the field. I know he got COVID 4 times and tried to start a rap career. And he also had one of the funniest starts to NFL career with this funny drive clip you're looking at right now. Definite bust of a player. And then the worst pick since 2015, I have to go with Dorial Green Beckham. At one point, he was the highest high school recruit ever. But in college, he never put it together. He kind of was getting into trouble a lot, I think. I think he has a DWI on his jacket too. So in the NFL, he dropped to the 2nd round just because they were betting on his talent, and he still never lived up to it. For the honorable mention here, I have Kevin Dodd and I have Treylon Burks. Now simply Kevin Dodd was just whack. Treylon Burks was supposed to be the A.J. Brown replacement, but he didn't live up to that at all. I don't even think he can stay on the field as a consistent wide receiver for the Titans. So yeah, they made my job super easy this time. Now unlike the Titans, the Texans, they gave me a little bit of run for my money, but I did some digging and I found some bad players. So their worst pick since 2020, I have Ross Blacklock. If you don't know who this is, join the club. Now I'm a D-tackle enthusiast, but if you don't do enough to make a name for yourself and don't have much production as a 2nd round pick as a D-tackle, that's kind of a bust to me. So unless he kicks it up, for now he's going to go down as their worst draft pick since 2020. Now since 2015, I got Braxton Miller. Now Braxton Miller, you guys all probably know him, used to be a great Ohio State quarterback, made the switch to wide receiver, thought he could make it work. He used his final season at Ohio State to try to accelerate this switch, but once he got into the NFL, he never put it together. And then for honorable mention, I have Jalen Strong. He was actually Jalen weak as hell because he was never that good. And maybe I'll shoot him some bail. I think maybe the team gave up on him too quick. He got a little trouble with some weed in the offseason or something like that, and they just kind of shipped him off after a couple of years. So either way, not a good pick. Now, when I said the Titans made it easy for me, the Raiders made it so easy for me. So since 2020, I had to go with the infamous Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs was supposed to be a great, speedy wide receiver out of Alabama. Now, this wasn't for anything on the field, but this was actually on the road where he was caught going 156 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. Horrible decision by both parties here. Now, since 2015, I have Clelin Ferrell. Now, I picked Clelin Ferrell because he was 4th overall. And if you pick a player 4th overall, you're expecting him to be damn near generational. And he wasn't even mid. He was pretty bad as a pass rusher. At the time, most people thought this was a reach. So the Raiders proved them right and ended up on my list. Now, the honorable mention, because the Raiders have so many different players, I couldn't even choose just one, or even 2 for that matter. It's up to you guys, so this is going to be our challenge today. Subscribe, comment a Raiders bad pick in your Cash App, and I'll send you a little blessing. But moving right along to our next team, we're going to go with the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos, for their first pick since 2020, that was their worst pick, I'm going to go ahead and go with another Alabama player here. We got Jerry Jeudy. Now, as we see with the Browns, Jerry is nice, but for some reason he couldn't quite put it together on the Broncos. He's had rumors of attitude issues. I don't care how clean his footwork is or his front taper. He's on my list. Now, for the worst pick since 2015, I got Paxton Lynch. Now, this one was extremely easy because he was another reach pick out of Memphis. He was kind of seen as a big ball of clay that maybe they can get molded into a great quarterback, but he was never actually that. He is a good quarterback name, though. I'll give that to him. And for the honorable mention, I got KJ Hamler. Now, he has no excuse because the coaches nowadays are smart, but he's another one of these speedy guys that never really quite put their game together. And I'm a fan of these guys, but these teams keep trying to get him in the 2nd round, and it just never works out like that. Maybe they should wait till the 3rd round. But yeah, KJ Hamler, definitely on watch. Now, moving right along to the Chargers, I had to hop in my Duffy once again to find some players, but for the worst player since 2020, I have JT Woods. Now, I checked the Chargers Reddit and they said this guy isn't good at covering. tackling, or even backpedaling. So they must be on to something. And I think even with the third round pick, you should be able to be a playable asset for the team. So I got him right here as the worst pick since 2020. And now the worst pick since 2015, I got Forrest Lamb. And I know it's hard to find offensive lineman highlights, but I was searching. All I could find was him doing some benches in his combine workout. So there must be something going on here. So Chargers fans, you can let me know if I'm wrong, but I got him in here. Plus his name's Forrest. You gotta live up to the gong. And next for honorable mention, I have Mike Williams. Now, I know everybody's going to say he's actually super good, and he is good, but it's so frustrating seeing how many times he's gotten hurt, and I know that was frustrating for them as well. So I'm not going to say he's a bad pick, but he definitely could have done more with his skill set and with all of his leaping ability and whatnot, you know. Skirting right along, we got the Chiefs. Now, for their worst pick since 2020, you guys probably guessed it, it's going to be old Sky Moore. Now, Sky Moore, he was a receiver out of, I think it's Central Michigan, something like that. I think, yeah, these Central Michigan guys really don't ever turn out that well. He was rocking number 24. Now, I know that's not an indictment on him as a player, but 24 as a wide receiver is crazy. I'm only rambling on this much because he was also the worst player since 2015. I'm not even being lazy. He was just that bad. He has like no significant impact. Is he even still on the team? I'm not even quite sure if he's on the team still. Either way, Sky Moore, you gotta step it up, brother. And then I'm going to just go right into the honorable mention, where I have Mecole Hardman and I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't even know why I put Mecole in here. He's just not that bad, but I guess he's pretty mid and then he got traded. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he definitely didn't live up to his first round pick, and now they're going with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt yet again. Now we have to get to the Miami Dolphins. Now the Dolphins, they draft pretty well, but that didn't stop me from finding my boy Cam Smith here. Now apparently after doing a little bit of research, he might have lost a little bit of confidence in his abilities and has to get a little bit more disciplined. I think the DB coach said he has to work on his fundamentals, which is never the best sign you want to hear. Well, then moving on to the worst pick since 2015, I have Leonte Carew. Now, he was a third pick, 88 overall, but like I said, the Dolphins had a lot of good picks, but this was not one of them. As you can see, all I got here is some training camp highlights. I think he maybe amassed 400 yards total in his career. I partially picked him because his name is funny. And now for honorable mention, we got Channing Tindall, who's a linebacker. He really hasn't done much of anything for them, and don't be fooled by this one play I put in here. It's his only play. It's a nice play though. He really boomed, is that Taylor Heineke? Yeah, he really boomed Taylor Heineke there. And now we're going to move right over on to the Patriots. As we know, the Patriots were carried by the GOAT, so they have a lot of picks to choose from here. But since 2020, I got Mac Jones. Now, there's not much to say about Mac Jones that you probably don't already know. He's built like an accountant, he sounds like an accountant, and he plays like an accountant. Somehow he made the Pro Bowl his rookie year. We're not going to talk about that though, so worst pick since 2020. And now the worst pick since 2015, I have N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry is another one of these Arizona State wide receivers. Kind of think of the Jalen Strong build. He has a couple good clips here and there, but if you're a first round pick and you're not a number one wide receiver really, then what are you doing? He never really got his footing. And then for the honorable mention, I have Jack Jones. Now Jack Jones actually isn't even a bad player, but I think if you have like issues with like the front office and the coaches like all the time and it's pretty public, that kind of puts you in bad pick territory just because you're like a nuisance to the team. He figured it out with the Raiders though. And next up, we have everybody's favorite franchise, the New York Jets. Now, since 2020, we have our thumbnail here. We have Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, he got a lot of shots low-key with the Jets, and maybe a couple bad rosters here and there, but he definitely never pulled it together. He even had a chance to work with Aaron Rodgers and try to right the ship one last time, but he couldn't do that and went to the Broncos. And then the worst pick since 2015, it's still Zach Wilson. I probably could have put Sam Darnold here, but I feel like the Zach Wilson era was much more like toxic and a bad time for Jets fans. And I'm just a Giants fan, I'm not a Jets fan, just to clarify that. But I think it was just like a bad time for them, so that's why I kept him there. And then for the honorable mention, I do have Darren Lee and Sam Darnold because I couldn't go without mentioning Sam Darnold. Darren Lee was definitely a worse pick though, because everybody thought he was going to be like this cool, like hybrid, experimental linebacker, but he never was just like heavy enough to play in the NFL actually. Now the Buffalo Bills have hit on a lot of picks, so this one was a little fun as well. But since 2020, I have the cornerback Kaiir Elam. Now you don't even gotta take my word for it. A lot of Bills fans hate this guy. I think he got cooked in the championship game against the Chiefs, so that kind of left a bad taste in their mouth. And the worst pick since 2015, I got Reggie Ragland. Now Reggie Ragland, he was one of those beefy, hard-hitting middle linebackers out of Alabama. And I think the game kind of got away from his style of play, so he never really was a very reliable contributor to the Bills defense there. And then lastly, for honorable mention, we have Boogie Basham. Now, Boogie Basham was a second-round pick, a defensive end. He probably was trying to be like a Jared Verse kind of player if you think about it, but he never actually lived up to that. Plus, he definitely didn't live up to his name being Boogie Basham. That's too cool of a name. Be sure to like and subscribe, and tune in every Monday and Thursday for new videos. Appreciate y'all.